Hi, my name's Chris from Driver Training Limited, and we've been audit registered trainers since 2007. In today's video, we're going to discuss a topic which not only confuses a lot of people who are doing the ADI Part 3, but also causes apprehension for those perhaps doing the ADI Standards Check Test. In today's video, we're going to discuss fault analysis. What is fault analysis and how can you use it not only in your lessons, but in the ADI Part 3 and ADI Standards Check Test. And it's a lot more simple than you think. Welcome to Driver Training Limited. So in this episode, we're going to discuss fault analysis. Now, what does analysis mean? Well, let's look at a definition. It basically means to look at something in depth, to break it down to help someone understand what went wrong and why and what the possible consequences are. And you know, you and I see that in action, or have seen it in action, hundreds, thousands of times. Do you watch Match of the Day? Do you like watching the cricket? Do you like watching Great British Bake Off? So you've seen many examples of fault analysis. So for instance, in the football, if somebody scores, they don't just say, oh, team A scored. What they do is they go through it. They do slow motion replays. The reason that team scored is because these two defenders are out there. The attacker from the other side makes that diagonal run. The ball gets crossed and it's a goal. In the cricket, it's the same. Any sport, it's the same, isn't it? They do step-by-step analysis of what went wrong and what they did that they shouldn't have done and what they can do to improve it. On Great British Bake Off, they'll say, unfortunately, you have a soggy bottom. Talking about their cakes, I hope. But then they say the reason is you didn't put it on a low heat to begin with and then increase the heat, or you know, whatever the problem is. They help them understand what went wrong and why it went wrong. And that's all basically we need to do with the ADI Part 3 and ADI Standards Check Test. Now, to analyse something, as we said, means to look deeper, help the person understand basically what went wrong, what we should then do in that situation, and what the possible outcomes of doing it wrong is. So we always link it, for instance, to wiring a washing machine. Now, an electrician with 30 years of experience knows how to wire a washing machine. I have no idea at all. So if the electrician said to me, don't touch those two wires together, you could think, oh, why not? Will it turbocharge my washing machine? Will it make it more efficient? Will it make it faster? But if the electrician said to you, no, if you touch those two wires together, not only are you going to kill yourself, you'll blow the house up. Don't touch those two wires together. So we've kind of analysed a potential fault. We've said what the consequences were of doing it. So the result is I'm going to make sure those two wires never come near each other. And that's the same with the ADI Part 3. This is the same with the standards check. with fault analysis. It's helping the pupil see why it's important to do it. We'll do them later when it comes to moving off and stopping. But again, the amount of times we've had pupils come from other instructors and they've gone to drive off without checking the blind spot. And you've said, where is the blind spot? Well, it's over my shoulder. Why do you need to check it? I don't know. He just kept moaning at me if I didn't. Said I need to check it before I move off. So they know what to do, but they're not aware of the consequences of making a fault like that. Whereas if they understand, but what if there's a car there? What if there's a 40-ton lorry coming past you? What if there's someone on a scooter, e-bike, e-scooter that you just can't hear and you pull out without checking? Then they understand the consequences. So like us with that washing machine, they're less likely to make that mistake again because they understand the importance of why they need to do it correctly. So that in a nutshell is what fault analysis is. Now linked with that, there's a couple of things that can help you before we go into our example. The first is to have either a briefing folder with the subjects that you can just show them or draw on them to show them what happened, what went wrong, because the last thing you want to be doing is moving your hands about like you're in a bad sort of kung fu movie. You have a picture in your head, your student doesn't. So you need to be on the same page when it comes to what you're talking about. The second thing that helps with that is if you have a dash cam that links to your iPad or your tablet in the car, then you can play the incident back in real time that they've just experienced and help them understand. And that's what a lot of the pictures that you're going to see in this example have come from. A briefing folder and dash cam. So it helps the pupil to see what they've done. We've added some pictures as well, but it helps the pupil to see that what they've done and what they need to do to put it right. So that's the overall basis of fault analysis. So what we're going to do is look at one example in this video. Now this is the first in a series of videos going on about fault analysis, fault identification. The playlist will be up and linked into the description along with the images from the briefing folders, so you can then go through them and get a better idea of one, how to identify the fault correctly, but secondly, how to then analyze it. So the first thing that we're going to look at is turning right. Now in this situation, we're going to do an example of a pupil who's gone to turn right, but they've also gone to do what's called a right corner cut, where they've turned early. So let's see the difference fault analysis makes. Let me explain that further and show you some examples. Here's our example. Our pupil has come up to turn right, but what they've gone to do is turn early and do what's called a right corner cut. Now, without fault analysis, you're just going to say to them, Chris, what you did there, you turned early. What you need to do is make sure that the front of the car is level with the center white line before you turn, which is technically correct, but is that really the reason the pupil has made the fault? Well, this is where fault analysis comes in. Now, first of all, part of risk management means there's nothing wrong with saying to them, stop, don't turn, once you realized it was going to go wrong. Or, you know, if you have to grab the wheel and go, don't turn yet, that's fine. Then you would get them around that turn and then ask them to pull up somewhere on the left. So because on your driving test, this would be classed as a serious fault, because on the ADI Part 2 test, this would be classed as a serious fault, then you're expected to pull them up on your ADI Part 3 or standards check test and analyse the problem. Because remember, the examiner's wordings are, please feel free to pull up and discuss any safety critical incidents. And this definitely is a safety critical incident. So the first thing we can do is just go back to it and say to them, so back there, Chris, I asked you to not turn, I asked you to stop. Do you know why I asked you to do that? No. So now we can either show them a picture from the book, or if we've got a dash cam, we can show them the picture or the video of what they were just about to do. So if they're not aware of what they've done wrong, then while showing them the diagram or the video from the dash cam, we can say to them, so what you went to do there, Chris, you went to turn early and do what's called a right corner cut. Do you know where the focal point or the reference point is for when we turn? And then they may say yes or no. Very often we've had it that, no, I've not been taught what is my reference point. Well, we want it so the front of the car is level with the centre white line of the road we're turning into. But then the fault analysis would be, well, what is the problem with turning at that point? What problems could it cause? And then we can let them go round and have another go at it afterwards. But what if the answer is, yes, I did know I was cutting that corner? Well, then we can ask them why. So what we were doing, Chris, we were coming up to turn right, as we can see. Why did we go at that point? Well, I saw the car coming through the lights and I thought, well, if I go now, I can get across before he gets to me. But Chris, can you see round that corner as to what's coming down the other side of the road? No. So if there was a car, what could the problem be with that? And then if there was an accident, whose fault would it be? In another example, it could be, so why did we go to turn right? Well, I couldn't come up level with the centre white line because that pedestrian was crossing the road. And I could see the vehicle coming the other way, but I thought, well, if I go now, I can get across and avoid both of them. But what's the problem with doing that, Chris? What problems could that potentially cause? Oh, we could hit something coming the other way. Yeah. So if that happens again, what would be the better way of doing that? I suppose come up level with the centre line and just wait. Exactly right. Remember, our driving test is looking at how safe we're going to be, not how quickly we can get round the corner. So we were coming up to turn right, Chris. Why were you going to go at this point? Well, I could see the blue car coming towards me and I thought, oh, I can go now. But what's on our right in this picture, Chris? Oh, the silver car. I didn't see that. So if we turn at this point, what's going to happen? I'm going to go head to head with it, aren't I? Yes. And if there is an accident, whose fault is it going to be? Oh, it's going to be mine. Yeah. And how would you feel if you were that silver car and someone was turning on your side of the road? I wouldn't be happy. So if this situation happens again, what do we want to make sure of? Where is our reference point before we think about turning? Oh, the centre white line. So what would be a better option next time? Oh, just to come up, wait for them to go and then go. Yeah, because do we have a gap coming up? Yes, after that second car. So it wouldn't have been a long stop that we had to make, would it? No, I can see that now. We were coming up to turn right here, Chris, and you started to go at this point. Why were you going to turn right at this point? Well, I could see the van waiting on the left, and I thought, I don't want to hold him up. It was clear from ahead, so I thought, oh, I can go. Okay, Chris, I see that. But with that van, the distance between us and the van, could he have thought, actually, if I'm going straight across this crossroads, I've got enough time to go before the learner gets to me? Oh, I suppose so. You see, the van could be thinking, well, if I've got time to go, what's the last thing he's expecting us to do at this point? Oh, perhaps turn right? Yeah. So the van driver's thinking, well, the learner's still a good distance away. I can go across, get out of its way. And at the same time the van driver does that, we decide to turn right. So now, what's the problem going to be? Oh, you're going to have two vehicles going round at the same time. Yeah. And also, when you look to the right around the corner, can you see what's coming up towards that crossroads from the road on the right? No. So if there's a car coming up, if there's a lorry, if there's just a kid on a bike, you're not going to see it at this point. But then the danger is they're going to have two vehicles, the van on the correct side of the road and us on the wrong side of the road coming round, and there would be nowhere to go. So if this situation happened again, what do you think would be the safer way to deal with it? Oh, perhaps just approach slower, come up. And if the van's sitting there waiting for us, then once we're level with the centre line, we can turn. Very good, yes. And what if the van did go at this point? Well, perhaps if he was in a rush, he'd actually be across before I got there, so I wouldn't have to worry. I'd just come up and turn right normally. Very good, Chris. Well done. Here, Chris, we went to turn early. Can I ask why? Oh, I just saw the road ahead was empty. I thought, great, I can go. But where should we be before we turn? Oh, level with the centre white line of the road we're turning into? Yes. And are we? No, not at this point. Also, if you look to the right, what do we have? Oh, the van. Yeah, so because the van's there, can you see what's coming down that road towards us? No. So if there was a car or a lorry, would you be able to see it? No. So what could then be the consequences of us turning at this point? I could cause a problem for someone, couldn't I? Yes. So you are right, Chris. When it's empty from ahead, when we've got a big enough gap, we can go. But we always have to temper that with the fact of where do we need to be before we decide to turn into the road? Oh, yes, I've got to be up level with that centre line, haven't I? Yes. If the white line is faded or you can't see, what could help like in this instance? Oh, the double broken white lines? Yeah, we see where they end and the single broken white line begins, so we know that's the centre point of the road. And what does that allow us to do? Coming up level with that line. Oh, to see into the road, to see if there are any vehicles parked or there's any reason that, I need to wait perhaps for a vehicle coming down. Well done, Chris. Very good. So shall we go and try that again then? So if we look back at the dash cam footage, Chris, this is where we're about to turn right. Can I ask why you decided to go at this point? Well, I could see the cyclist coming down the pavement towards us, and I thought, well, if I go now, I can get across before he gets to the junction. Okay, I see your point with that. But can you see round the corner on the right? No. So can we see what's coming down the road towards us? No. And because the weather is wet today, what does that do to people's braking distances? It doubles it, doesn't it? So if we go round the corner and there is something coming down towards us, a van, a car, a lorry, do you think they could stop in the time they thought it would take? Because they're just planning on stopping at the white line at the end of the road. Do you think they're planning on us coming round on the wrong side of the road? No. So if we approach a junction like this and we've got a cyclist in that position, what do you think really is the better way of dealing with this? Well, I suppose looking at it now, just come up to the line and stop, let the cyclist cross if they're going to, and then carry on. So you're 100% right, Chris. So at this point, we would already be thinking, what? Well, I'm just going to have to come up and stop. That's it, Chris, 100% right. Well done. Let's go round and try it again, shall we? So can you see the difference that fault analysis makes? We're not jumping to conclusions about why something went wrong. We also help the pupil understand why it went wrong, the possible outcome of it going wrong like that. But then if that happens again, we now have given them a remedy. We've given them a way to correct it. So we've helped gain their knowledge. Has learning for the ADI Part 3 ADI Standards Check taken place? Yes. So we hope this short video has helped you understand more about fault analysis and how to do it. As I say, keep an eye out. We'll put the link to the playlist in, and we're going to start building those up, different situations, so that you can identify the fault, analyse the fault and fix it, which all really is what the ADI Part 3 and Standards Check revolve around. So keep tuned. My name is Chris from Driver Training. Remember, teach well, drive safely, and we'll see you all again in our next video.